Thanks for listening to the Music Production Podcast. One of the best ways to keep up with my work is by joining the Music Production Club. My Music Production Club gets you access to my latest creations as soon as they're released. You also get exclusive packs, presets, samples, and templates that only come with the Music Production Club membership, as well as educational materials such as my books and my video courses. And then there's bonus materials you get just for joining. There's also a community of like-minded producers, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. In our Discord, we help each other make music, share tips and tricks, inspirations, and we also have our live meetings online over Zoom. And during those meetings, we have some sort of musical challenge, and we spend the first hour making music and the second hour sharing our music. And I want to show you some music we made in one of our last meetings. The parameters to our challenge for this meeting were to use my Ghosts Ableton Live Pack, my Trip Hop Drums Ableton Live Pack, the Dank Verb Impulse responses from Perform Module. Those are all included with your Music Production Club membership. And to use a scale you don't normally use that you're kind of unfamiliar with. Now I'd like to let you hear some of the music that we made during this live meeting. Here's a track called Aurora by Trev Phonic. Then here's part of a jam from Psychotronic Squirt Gun. And this track was made by Sicken during the meeting. This track is by Animus Invidious, called Bazoo Falap. And here's what I made during our meeting. I used the whole tone scale. We all made these songs in about 45 minutes and then shared them with each other. And it's so cool that we had each other to kind of lean on, to motivate ourselves to do these tracks, to work together. And to hear what everyone made was so much fun. So much diversity in the sounds, all done with the same parameters, but totally different results. I'm really grateful to have a community of people that I can make music with like this. If you want to be part of this, check out the Music Production Club. Go to brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. This is the show about all things related to making music. And today I have a special guest, somebody I'm a fan of, Will Hatton, who makes music as Hush Child, who's got the Inspired by YouTube channel. And really a great source of information, creative ideas, or tutorials. Will's YouTube channel is phenomenal. The Instagram is great. I've learned a lot from him and been inspired by him, as this channel is called, and enjoying the music that you got to, Will. Thanks for being here, man. It's great to see you and talk to you in real life.
Thank you so much for having me.
Or
I'm excited
semi-real
to jump
life,
into
whatever
it.
this is.
Semi-real life. Dude, that was a great intro. Have you got a teleprompter? That was good.
No. That was, I think about it a little, but that's my least favorite part of the show, honestly. it just feels so awkward.
Like, yeah, it's a little bit rigid, but that was great. You threw in a little inspired by pun there. I appreciate it. That's great.
That happened totally by accident.
I'm sure that was good.
Well, good. I'm
I'm
glad you
excited.
like it because I always feel nervous about that for my guests. Like I'm gonna do some disservice to them, but
Not
I
at
like to
all.
keep this casual, relaxed conversation style, and sometimes I think that sort of goes against what I'm trying to do. So I keep thinking maybe I should take that out and do something different, but I never know what to do, so I just always fall back on it.
No, leave it in. Leave all the bloopers in. Poke fun. Make lots of puns and rhyme apparently as well if you
Cool.
can.
There you go. Look at that. See?
Thank you. Thank you.
We're getting in what they call the flow, right? It's awesome to meet you, man. Seriously, I do love your stuff. Your stuff always comes up in my YouTube algorithm, and I'm always glad to see it. And it's the kind of stuff that I'm really drawn to as far as like tutorials go and just music production because it's practical, it's useful, it's not promotional, it's not kind of whatever's happening in the moment. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but it's got substance. That's what I really like, man. So, and you do a great job with the videos, the way you edit them, the way you put them together. I'm very much a fan, so it's great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. We said this before, but like same to you. Like everything is very inspired by. You seem like a very busy person. You have a lot going on with the podcast and the channel, and then all the training, and then I see your emails roll out as well, and I'm just like, this guy's busy. You're putting us all to shame.
Nah, you too, man. You've got such good stuff. That's stuff I want to talk to you about. How'd you even get into doing this all? Because you mentioned in your email, it's something I didn't know. You were streaming to tons of people on a Reddit streamer, which I didn't
That's
even
it.
know
Yeah.
existed.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of
Yeah, so
people
give us the
knew
background.
that existed. I shouldn't undermine people. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to that also didn't know it existed.
It's
And
underground. It's cool.
it's underground. Yeah, so like it was I came from for those that don't know, a teaching background, and I was a music teacher for like 9 years, coming up 10. And I was like, I don't know if you've ever had a job where you're like, you go in the door and you're like, this is a stepping stone. I'll be here for a hot minute, and then I'll be on to the next thing, and then you're there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 7 years, and you're like living the same life, and then you get to 9 years and you're like, oh, I think this is my career. Oh no, and I just was doing the teaching alongside. I was a session musician. I used to play in orchestras for bands, for solo artists. A lot. Anytime I finished my lectures at the college, I also ran studios across London. I don't live in London, so it was like a big commute. Would run those studios for normally like rappers, poets, singer-songwriters. And then I would dip after that back to the college the next day. I would do a lot of my session work as a drummer from the college studio so I could send that out. And everything was big dreams, but I was always putting the college first, and it was like that for like 9 or 10 years. And then the pandemic came, and like for a lot of people it just kind of like shook your little globe that you lived in up, and there was like other priorities and things. And there was a time, and I said this when we were off air, I go on so many tangents, I'll remember to come back to the Reddit thing, but you remind me if not. But there was a time when I think it was when Twitch came about, and me and a friend, another YouTuber, we were both working at the college, both hadn't entered the world of YouTube yet, were basically just teaching and doing some odd sessions. And we saw Twitch and we said, that would be great if people took that platform away from game, or, not away from gaming, but used it in an alternative way alongside the gaming platform. And this was when it was only live streams of people playing video games. And then, of course, we did nothing. And Twitch became not only a streaming for games platform, but it became a sports platform, a just talking platform, a podcast platform, and a music platform as well. And we remember thinking, damn, we were really on the cusp of that, and just, pure laziness. We didn't do anything with it. Fast forward a few years and the pandemic, and I wanted to quit my job. I didn't want to go 10 years as a teacher at the same college. It was a college that was good when I came into it, but it was severely underfunded and really utilizing an old syllabus. Like, I was genuinely teaching there in the year 2019, but teaching kids how to record to tape. And these kids, they were born in 2001, 2002. They didn't know what tape was. I was making jokes about, it's the only format that you could record to, and use a pen. You needed a pencil around, and they would just. And so it was time to take a sidestep into online education. And with the pandemic and the thing being that most teachers and most people that work from home were going to utilize Zoom or Google Meet, I just thought about the college and how outdated they were, how underfunded they were, and how just there weren't teachers ready to teach online. They didn't have the resources. They didn't know how to utilize a smart board, let alone, set up a home system for teaching. And I thought that's the place where I feel most secure. We were doing music production. I was already bringing tracks from home. This was even better, actually. So I was really ready to set up teaching from home. And then it just occurred to me that I didn't want to do that terrific thing of creating slides and animations and great sound and specific tracks and syllabus for someone else that was just going to go, thanks, or not even, for the most part. So I thought I'll set up a YouTube channel and an online kind of one-to-one format, which became the Patreon, and some kind of classroom, which became Discord. And it was a really terrific way to start getting to know a community, building relationships, teaching, but in the sense that I used to enjoy it. And then that's when I found Reddit, because I was looking for just resources, or I found RPAN on Reddit when I was looking for resources. And it was something that was like, when it first came out, you could only stream for 1 hour. And it was like, you had to, I think you had to write in, and a mod would get back to you and they would say, cool, your slot is X time or whatever. But there was like 5-6 people streaming on this thing called RPAN. And everybody was like walking their dog with their phone in their hand out on the street. The audio was terrible. It was super shaky. And it was that Twitch thing again. And I said to my friend, I was like, all you need is dedicated audio. All you need is to be able to do it on a better camera, because it was only like mobile compatible. And I spoke to another friend and I was like, is there any way that you can code this so that there's like a way that I can backdoor into RPAN and stream from my computer instead of streaming from a phone, and I can play the computer audio rather than something from like the live audio mic. So from some online resources and my friend, they coded this thing that worked through I don't have any knowledge about code to this day, but it was through like text edit, and it would allow me to like sync up to RPAN. And the first stream did 140,000 people, and I was like, we're onto something. It was like
Wow. Yeah.
really bad. The whole idea was just like some lo-fi beats, and this is like in the first month or two that I'd quit my job, no money coming in, and like it was the idea was like kind of lo-fi girls live stream, and I'd already like emailed Lo-Fi Girl, and I'd already emailed like Chill Hop and all these people, and was like, I can do this thing live. It would be really cool to do like live gigs and that. And I never heard anything back from anybody. So I was like, cool, I'll just do it on this RPAN thing. I put a telly in the background, and there was like some animations there and stuff. And it sucked. It looked so bad. I think like it might be on my Instagram if you go back far enough. And the second one, I was like, cool, I want to do this again, but I want to do it better. So I got a green screen, and I was like, 140,000 is good, but only if they're into lo-fi. What's keeping people there? Because the drop-off rate was crazy. And I was like, oh, what if it was like a walk with me kind of video? Every week is a different place in the world. So I'd go on YouTube and I would find videos where people were doing like POV hour plus walking videos through New York, through Canada, through Germany, through London, through wherever. And I would have that behind me as if I was traveling with the viewer. We could all see it in real time and we could comment on those things. Had a mic. And I would just play like chilled beats. And very quickly that became 1 million people watching it every week, twice a week. And I was like, oh, this is terrific. And even I don't know if I'm allowed to say names, but some high up people in Reddit gave me an email, and they were like, "We'd love to speak to you about this." And at the time, I was like, "Oh no, I'm in trouble," because this was like a backdoor thing. At the time, it was only open to folks from the US. I'm
Yeah.
some UK kid trying to, get in on the action and whatever. And they just, hit me up and were like, "This is really crazy. You're from the UK. You've managed to log into this thing, and you're doing awesome numbers. Can you just sit down with some of the other, not affiliates, alumni that are also using this program, and just like, kind of show them the things that work, the things that didn't work." So I started working with some other creators there. And that was really the thing that sparked like better Discord content, better YouTube content, and the community that I'm still very close with now, because that RPAN network only ran for a year. It never got any particular monetization. There was never like a tip jar or anything like that. It was just a chat box and just a live stream. So it really became about like, how could I be of service to a community? I wasn't crazy about the music. But when I missed a stream, there were so many people that were like, I tune into this every week. And it's like, a source of relief and something that I enjoy. I enjoy speaking to the other people in the chat. And there was like a bunch of bad stuff that we can get into as well. But for the most part, it was a really big leg up in the online education space. And it got me to learn very quickly about like how to present myself online, like talking head work, being more open than I ever was in a teaching background to just perform on the spot or speak on the spot. And it really cultivated a close community that, as I said, like many of them are still involved now. Many of the people that helped out with the RPAN streams are now the mods over at the Discord. And it's just become like a tight-knit family, a huge family, but a tight-knit family.
Yeah, wow. That's really cool. It's pretty awesome when you tap into something like that. Because you're getting a lot out of it, learning, figuring stuff out. But the fact too, I mean, if we can kind of remember what that time was like, all of the things that we were able to turn to were so important. They got us through it. And you were a part of that for a lot of people. It's pretty nice that they were upset when you didn't show up, for instance. Just
It's a
what a like great compliment that is.
yeah, it's strange that like it's like so dreamlike. We've all spoken about the pandemic, ad nauseum, of how weird it was and how unique it was for each person. But there really was like a lot of things that we adopted either through work or through the government, depending on where you were based in the world, that we're like, even now, especially for me, I don't know about for you, because my career started in the pandemic, that we're so we just can't give up, because we've become so accustomed to those things that we used in the pandemic. I even speak to family on Zoom or FaceTime still, just because it became, I became so much more accustomed to it than just that sort of like once a week checking on the phone, for instance. Yeah, so it's a strange time, and I owe a lot to technology and people and the time itself, even though it was gruesome for so many people. I definitely appreciate, in some respects, the constraints that it put on things. Because I don't think if I was
Mhm.
pushed that hard, I would have probably ever left the college, or at least I wouldn't have left, like kind of that corporate kind of job.
Right, right. Yeah, it opened up like in a weird way, kind of because the opportunities closed down, it forced the other doors open for a
Absolutely, yeah.
lot. Yeah. And a lot of that does sort of just it's carried over. We just gotten used to it. And um a lot of things for the better, actually. Like what you're talking about is definitely a good side, good outcome of that. Very nice. So then you transition to YouTube. That's where it moves on from there.
I think, yeah, pretty much. I had there was definitely some teething problems, and I've been, um, talking about forcing yourself to do something different. Me speaking this into existence on your podcast will make me follow this up. But I've been meaning to do a video on that question itself. Um, there were some things that I hadn't got started at the right time when I started the YouTube channel. I definitely didn't have a voice. I remember my
Mm.
early YouTube videos were like, I was trying to be really comedic. I'd seen other videos that I thought were akin to like what I wanted to do, and I was throwing in memes and cartoons and explosions, and I was being really loud and very like, I guess like hypocritically, like, I don't care about this that much, but obviously I do because I quit my job to do it. And it just, it didn't make sense. And the views, I
Yeah.
think, reflected that. There's still some of the lowest viewed videos on my channel. And one of the things I did was just take a month out before I really started the weekly or twice weekly content with YouTube, is just trying to figure out how I was going to make a living doing this. And the video that I keep meaning to create, but I don't feel like I've done it justice yet, is I essentially managed to quit my job and start the YouTube career in 10 songs. I had this idea to basically create um, 10 songs that I would then go on to sell to producers as ghostwritten songs or artists, but then also sell as sync licensed songs to libraries, and then also create jingles. And it would take me far
Mm.
too long to create a ton of content. So I'd create 10 songs, separate them into stems. And if you imagine the list of songs is like this, I would take the drum beat from the bottom song, put it at the top song, and then move all the other grooves down, and then pitch all of my music a few semitones up, maybe change one or two elements of each of those songs. And now you've got a whole new batch of 10 songs. So I'd sell the first 10, the second batch of 10 songs, I would put on a exclusive sync website. And then I would take all of the intros and just the last stab of all of those songs, delete the middle and stick them together, and do the same again, grooves and pitching. And then I would have basically a 15-second introduction with a stab at the end, and I could create jingles out of those. And then I uploaded those to every non-exclusive sync website as well. And it was basically those 30 songs that sort of got me thinking outside the box a little bit of like, how can I, sounds a bit crude to say this, but like put minimal effort in for maximum reward, and not in a lazy sense, but I just kind of
Mm.
wanted to do everything, and I wanted to make sure I could pay the bills. But because I know I'm such a perfectionist, I would have spent so long on 30 songs if I'd have decided to create 30 songs. So I decided to create 10 and try to manipulate them as best as I could. Um, and from there spawned things that I was learning along the way, which then created the YouTube channel, to answer your question. And that's where it started. I had a lot of students
Mm.
that obviously were at the college that rolled over into studying online through Zoom to their respective college lecturers, that were still emailing me saying like, "Hey, Will, like are you coming back? This person's dropped off. And then I would hear from another student or another member of staff that, they've lost X amount of students. And I would just write to those people and be like, hey, sorry that you quit the course. If you still want to study music, then I'm offering these services. And the students that either studied with me or chose not to would often give me ideas for the channel. You should include this. There's this artist coming out, or this person's dropped an album, or how do you do this technique? And it was around the time Phase Plant came out. So I just started focusing on, let's do Phase Plant content because, I think a lot of my students are into Serum. They'll probably be into Phase Plant. And it was really just tapping into what I'd been doing at the college, but was restricted to teach because of the syllabus at the time, that I was suddenly like, cool, we can do all the fun stuff. And then from there, got my first sponsor, and it just kind of snowballed. But YouTube has always been, since that time, the main focus.
A smart way to do it. I don't think there's anything you kind of said, made it out like it was lazy or something, but I don't think so at all. Like, you have to find ways to make it work, because there's so many hours in a day. And I think it's a really clever way to get around some of your tendencies of if it's perfectionism. I mean, we all have like certain things that get in our way all the time when we try to do music or make work around music. And to figure out clever things that will produce more for you is really important. It's part of the trick, really. Even like, if you think of like doing like a podcast like this, I can't make a new song for the theme every time. I can't. In fact, when I wanted to start the podcast, I had all these big ideas, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's going to have this section. It's going to be segments. And I never did it because it was just too much to do. It wasn't until I just started talking. Bare minimum, what can I do? What can it be? And see if I can even do that. I think a lot of times we all bite off way more than we can chew, and we don't even know if we can do like the smallest part yet.
Absolutely. There's a I'm kicking myself because I forget who said it. Maybe it was multiple people. I forget where I heard it. I think it was a podcast, and they were speaking about just the iPhone, just the fact that we're on. I mean, I've got a really old iPhone. I'm still on the iPhone 10 or iPhone X, whatever it was called. But we're on the iPhone 14, 15, 16, and iOS 0.1, 0.2. Both of us use Ableton. Live 11.1.2.3. We've got the announcement of 12. And I remember this podcast that I was listening to being like, they released that iPhone 1 knowing that it was the first iteration. It wasn't like, this is the phone and there'll be no more phones after that. And I remember hearing that and being like, oh, like putting something out is better than putting out the perfect. I do that all the time. Perfect thing. 6 months from now when I've missed a wave or whatever. So now I try to, as much as you say, like I have all these big ideas. Sometimes I just think, you know what, I'll try to get it done as best as possible, and I'll put it out and I'll get the feedback, and then I'll try to make adjustments, whether that be YouTube videos. Discord is a great example. Patreon's a great example where the community are like, can we have this? Or this thing doesn't work, or we did have this and it was cool, but we don't use it anymore, if it's channels and things like that. Always making changes. I don't know very much about your beginnings. Is there a particular like lesson that you learned along the way where you were like, oh, okay, this is either my shortcoming and I need to get around that? Was there any like particular tricks or hacks where you were like, okay, this allows me to output more work or work better?
Well, I think like I didn't really intend to end up here doing any of this stuff. I kind of stumbled into it. I made an Ableton Live instrument rack once. It was a sample of my computer feeding back the laptop when you turn the microphone on and you have the track armed and the speakers are on and it just goes woo, like, So I sampled it, it turned into a cool instrument. I put it online for people to download, and I believe Synthtopia.com picked up
Yeah.
on it and shared it. And in a weekend, I had more downloads for that than anyone ever listened to my music. I couldn't believe it. It was like there were like a couple hundred. I was like, oh
Mm,
my God. So I'm like, I'm going to do this again, because this is fun and people like it. And what it taught me was consistency.
mm,
So I think at that time, I I've always come from playing in bands. So, I do like my solo stuff too, but especially at that time, I had a band and it was, your whole heart's in it. And then, one day it's gone. The band
yeah.
doesn't exist anymore. And I needed discipline, because band practice was my discipline when we get
Mm,
together. And we were just pretty good at getting together. So we did it often enough. But once that went away, I had to find something for myself. And that gave me to do that regularly, kept me coming back. And that's how I learned Ableton Live. That's how I learned a lot more about producing and recording. I didn't know any of that stuff really when I started. I had like an idea, but Ableton Live especially was a new software for me. It was, yeah, it was just like the consistency stuff. And it wasn't perfect. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just went for it. And
mm,
I don't think you can know what you're doing until you start going in a lot of these situations. And that's something I've come to embrace, that I kind of don't know where I'm driving the car until I get in the car and start driving it. And
right.
if I make a wrong turn, I'll change course. And it's so much better to do that than to wait for like all the lights to turn green and then
Hmm.
I'll go,
Mm,
because then I'll never go. I think that was just something that clicked in me, that you kind of have to just drive in the dark without any headlights on and trust you're going to get somewhere. I mean,
sure.
sometimes you know what you want to accomplish and you have a goal, but a lot of times you don't really figure that out until you start looking. And I've probably spent some time after the band just maybe making a couple songs here and there, but not really knowing what I was doing.
Mm,
So it was, I think that's it, right? Just you got to kind of go. It's the same thing with songwriting. Sometimes you got to just start jamming, playing your instrument, just fooling around. So once in a while, you have inspiration and I'm going to make this song. I got this idea. The lyrics are in my head. Everything's already coming together. But that's so rare. And if you wait for that, you do almost nothing.
mm. It's so interesting. You say that there's a few things that really like resonate with me, and that sidetrack mind wants me to go in these three different directions, but I'm just going to pick one, and like you said, I'm just gonna go. We'll end up wherever we end up. But I have a come from a band background as well, um, and the showing up the rehearsals thing was always easy, and the kind of always hoping that like that next gig is going to be that's going to be the gig, and then we'll be
Mm,
getting paid a little bit better, or we'll be on the road constantly and whatever. And I saw my friend the other day, who we did so many sessions together, and I said, sometimes I reminisce about like, oh man, we haven't played a gig in a long time, or we haven't had a rehearsal, or something like that. And then I realize I don't miss worrying about where I'm going to park, worrying if travel's going to be paid for,
yeah,
like eating the shitty food, topping and tailing on, bunk beds, sleeping in buses, getting home late, being tired, like feeling exhausted, and having to only play for, sort of 20 minutes or 30 minutes or maybe an hour. But
right.
it, like the rehearsal was 3 hours this side, and getting home was 2 hours at this side. And it was kind of in the streaming elements, and the YouTube stuff and whatever, that I really became like comfortable performing in this space, in the space that you see right now, and being
Hmm.
um, being just appreciative of like how perfect the sound is. Like the headphones are always at the perfect volume. The speakers are always just where I need them. I don't have to like
Yeah,
say
right.
to a live engineer like up in yeah up here, like, you know, I don't have to do any of that stuff. I don't have to be
Yeah.
like vocals, you know. And I I don't know if I would ever go back to gigging again. That was one way I wanted to go with what
Mm.
you said. The other thing that was great was it was reactive. Like you said, driving in the dark, you knowing you're just going to get somewhere. I knew that like there were other members of the band. I was a session musician, so it was always learning other people's songs, and that kept me on my toes a lot. And I think the YouTube thing and solo production and doing things alone can be this vicious cycle of like thinking, I haven't got anything new. I've got nothing in the tank, you know. Um, I don't know what
Mm.
to create content on this week, or I don't know what to teach people because I haven't made a new song, or I haven't created a new rack or a new chain or this or that. And it was actually today that I was a bit stuck for content for the following week, and I was like, damn, I haven't focused on making anything new, um, music wise for a while. And it was just one of my Patreon students that was like, I want to focus on writing new melodies and writing better melodies and what constitutes as an earworm. Then I thought, you know what, I'll start writing that one-to-one session, because I try and plan all my sessions the week before I see these students. So I've got kind of like this person's lesson prepared and this person's lesson prepared. And I was like, I'll start that one. And it was in that there was like some really good questions, like what is an earworm? Like what is a good catchy
Mm.
melody, rather than just a melody. You and I can write melodies, but like what makes it like catchy and unforgettable? And through learning something that I didn't know about, it's like that's the content. Oh, brilliant! I made loads of notes. This is a
Mm.
terrific video. And they're always the videos I forget, and I forget this every time, whether it's every week, every month, every 6 months. I forget every time it happens that like when I learn something and I create the content on like, I've learned this, let me share it with you. It's always the best videos because I'm genuinely excited. I'm like, I didn't know this existed. And it doesn't matter if somebody else in
Mm.
the comments says like, oh, you didn't know that right click button was there in Ableton. Like we all knew that. I'm like, I didn't. I'm so excited about it. And there's a bunch of other people that are. The videos where I'm like, I've made a song, let me share it with you, are like faux excitement. I'm excited and I want to present it, but it was already there and it was kind of already organic. And I'm just going into the
Mm.
bank and trying to find what was here that you may be of interest, but you haven't asked for it. So, you know, it's good if you have come across it and you did enjoy it. Um, and today was one of those reminders, like you said, driving in the dark, just go. Don't wait for all of the green lights. And in that kind of momentum of trying to learn something new, it feels to me like I build the best content, and I have to try and bear that in mind if I can, of like just every day, just try and learn something new every day and just bank up a nice big list of cool stuff that I didn't know existed. Is there
Mm.
something your uh, in your repertoire and your roadmap of like a thing that makes you produce the best content?
Probably that excitement.
Mm,
Yeah. When something occurs to me, when I realize something and I'm excited about it, or um, I've done something that I haven't done before, something new, or you just stumble upon it. And sometimes you forget, like that's a good thing to share. And there's, as you do this more and more, I'm sure you know, like you kind of like, you can very easily get into like, well, that's already been done. That's already been done. I mean, but it's kind of all already been done
mm,
in a lot of ways. There's this and that, but sometimes you hear it a certain way or you figure it out a certain way that really kind of rings with you. It makes you get it. You hear a story or you make some connection with life that is like making a melody, you know? And it's like a
Absolutely.
conversation. And suddenly, like, you see all these connections, like, oh, yeah. And that's when I think it gets exciting and fun because you've got that in you and it comes through in your delivery. Um, yeah, even in my teaching, there are certain things that I come back to every year, every course or whatever that are just good. Like I know this is a good way to put it. This has worked in the past. But sometimes I'm a little surprised that they don't hit as hard as they did the first time. And it's
Right.
because well now I'm not feeling it the same way. I'm
Mm.
I'm just telling about how I felt and
Hmm.
how it was. So yeah, it's like the enthusiasm, I guess. And that because a lot of times when I start doing this stuff, I'm discovering it too, even as I'm talking about it. I've learned that so much about doing this podcast because when I do an episode that's just by myself talking about something, I'm kind of like working out my thoughts
Sure.
and putting it into words in real time. And that's really a helpful thing to do. And sometimes as you're doing, you're like, yeah, like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, this is how it is for me. And
Yeah.
like this is how I see it. And it's helpful. It's like you're going through it together, I guess. And I think that's probably why you're seeing that in like your comments where some people like are really jazzed by what you're saying because it's got that sense of like, "Oh, I figured this out too. You did a video recently with like rhythms and drums. And I got the impression like you and you might have said that even in the video, like a student had said something to you, how do I make more interesting beats? And then you kind of went into it and I could almost see that as you were talking about it, it was as if while you were talking about it, the idea sparked, you know, like it's like I think you said like the butterfly effect and you know, like those things
Absolutely.
sometimes don't happen unless you start doing it first.
Mm. It's I think something that I try to consciously go into with anything that I do, whether it be you and I talking right now, whether it be conversation with family on the phone, but especially the YouTube, the Patreon, the Discord. I try not to like patronize anybody. And anybody that's ever studied with me on the Patreon one to one, it's like the first thing I say in the first lesson is there are so many things that we're going to go over. And first of all, I don't want to like undermine your knowledge. So therefore, I might skip some things because I've been doing it for like, well, Ableton, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years. I was using Logic for 10 years before that, and I've been, doing production for half of my life. So there are little things, whether it be copy paste the shortcut for that or whatever, that I might just gloss over because I don't want to go as low to be like, okay, so this is a
Mhm.
keyboard, and down here, you know, and I always tell my Patreon students, like, if at any point I'm going too quickly, just interrupt me. But the same goes for if I'm being too patronizing and I'm being too slow, interrupt me. I don't feel any shame. You're paying for this hour that we're spending together.
Mm.
Um, and I want you to get the most out of it. It's quite hard um, to try and explain that in a YouTube video because a lot of people do come back, but there are a lot of new people. But still, I can't say every week, like, I hope I'm not patronizing you, but I want to talk about XYZ.
Mm.
So I just talk about XYZ. But oftentimes I'll say in the Discord, um, how was that? Like, did you think this about this content or that thing? And so many people, the community seems so kind. I think in general for all of us, like uh, music tutorial, like teacher type content creators, I think generally the community is kind. But everybody is like so supportive in the fact that like, no, we dig it just because you seem to be lighting up about it. And that session or that lesson that you mentioned with the rhythms, that was a real thing that occurred in a Patreon session and was one of those elements that I skipped over. And it's like, create a rhythm. That's cool. Create another rhythm. And in my head, I'm thinking, dude, that's the same rhythm, but you just added a second kick, and we'll have those funny moments where I'll be like, that's not different enough, and we'll laugh, he'll laugh, she'll laugh. And then they throw the question of like, will you do something then? And I go, well, what about this? And they go, well, how do you not how do you play that, but how did you think about that? Oh, I get so excited by that question, because it's like, how did you play? It's easy. I always found drums easy. I tried to learn every other instrument, and I always found drums easy because it's like Simon Says. It's just like, hit the red button, hit the blue button. Now you do it. Hit the red button, hit the blue button. All right, we're going to take it up a little. Red button, blue button, green button. And it's like, okay, I can do that. But then when someone says like, why did you pick up Simon Says? And you're like, oh, I don't know. Like, you have to go back. So to explain to someone, like, how do you think of, like, quote unquote, I wasn't the person that coined this, obviously, but like, how do you think up unusual rhythms and what constitutes an unusual rhythm? It was like, oh, dude, that's so exciting. I glossed over that because I just didn't think it was important, because I learned to play the drums, when I was sort of 11, 12 years old. Let's dive into it and then create a whole lesson on it, and go down the rabbit hole of like, this might be interesting to you. And if so, like, strap in, this is going to be sick. If not, feel free to tune out, because I'm excited about it, and I want to go down this tangent, and through the Patreon and through the YouTube, I think that comes across. I think it's obvious when there's enough videos there now that I think it's obvious when I'm forcing it. There was a section where my friends and partner and family were like telling me like, you're due a come up, because there was just this period of in the middle of the, like, all my YouTube videos where it was like 300 views, 500 views, 200 views, 600 views. Like, they were all low in comparison to where they were, and in comparison to where they are now, they were all like super low. And I think when I keep them there, because when I go back and watch them, they're like so obvious that each week I'm like, all right, we're going to do another song. And it's the same song that you heard last week. I'm just going to change the key. And I think like the last video that I, there was a little bit of a come up, and then there was a video where I was like really ill. I had pink eye for the first time, in my life, from a Limp Bizkit concert. And I did a video where I was like, I've got pink eye. Like, this will be a funny video. And it was like, dude, it was like so similar to the videos from that I told you about that I was uploading at the start of the YouTube career, where I was like trying to be funny. And I was doing it again, and I was like, look how bad I've got it. I got pink eye, Limp Bizkit. And I was throwing in memes to try and cover up the fact that I was embarrassed, and I was just trying to force out content. And again, the community was so kind. They didn't watch the video, which is fine. And then they were like, if you're sick, just take a week off. It's not that big a deal, bro. And I was like, oh, you can't undermine the audience, and you like belittle their intelligence. They'll tell you either verbatim through the Discord, through DMs, like, no, we're here to support. We know what's, when it's good, and we'll tell you when it's bad. Or they'll just tell you through actively clicking out of the videos, and you'll see that like drop off rate of your videos, or you'll see the negative views, and you're like, okay, I went wrong there. It's cool. Let's try and take it back to something that's interesting. And I think that's the same for like sponsored videos. It's the same for shelling courses or anything like that. If you're just taking the audience for a ride, I think they really see through it. I've had the same sponsor since I started the channel, and it was genuinely because I used DistroKid. And I was like, that same silly excitement that I get, I was like, this is wicked. Like, I had this idea of like starting a record label and trying to put music out. And then I was like, oh, it's really hard to put songs out and figure out, like, putting something on Spotify seems like magic. And you're like, how do you call them? And you're like, hey, I would like to upload one song, please. and to from there to trying to put out your own music and then find a DistroKid, I was like, this is ace. And then I was talking about them in videos, and then they reached out and they were like, you're doing this thing already. Do you want us to sponsor you? And you carry on talking about them. And I thought, oh, this is the
Cool.
perfect marriage, because now I don't have to pretend like this week we're sponsored by these water bottles. They're so good. You should all have a water bottle. Like I was just like,
Whenever I
that
need a
thing,
drink.
dude, I'm getting thirsty. Like, I was like, this thing that I'm always talking about, I'm going to keep talking about, but now they're a sponsor. And I think that's cool. And when they bring new stuff out, I'll be like, that's cool. And, I don't think they ever will, but, everything changes. And if DistroKid for some reason went under new management and took a turn, and it all went like hellish, then I'd be like, oh, it's not working for me anymore, and I'd have no ads. But I'm very like just very honest with the audience, and I think that resonates. I just try and be
It's
shorter with my answers, I think.
enthusiasm. You must do a lot of editing in your videos, huh?
Dude, my videos are like, I'm not going to say anything so I don't contribute to your answer. When you shoot an episode, how long is it?
It's pretty much exactly on time. That's the total lie. No, there's a lot of stop and start, and there's stitching things together, um, and it really depends on how self-conscious I'm feeling that day,
Oh, yeah.
because sometimes it's these little things, and sometimes I'll listen back. I'm like, why did I do that 7 times? It was fine, but you get in your head. Um, oh, it's all of that, and that's like the worst part of it. There's so much of that. That's why I like the podcast to be just kind of what you see is what you get, unless there's some problem or some major interruption, then we fix it. But otherwise, if it was anything more than that, it wouldn't get done. So
Are you
yeah, there's a lot of
naturally
that. There's a lot of.
introverted or extroverted?
I think I'm introverted naturally, but I think I've had some training to be extroverted. So I don't know if you know, I teach high school English as a day
Right.
job.
I
That's my
didn't know that.
life as
Okay.
like grown up, right?
Wow.
So, and it ties into something you were saying too earlier. And it's the enthusiasm thing. And playing live, it's the same thing. Like, you have to be into it. No one wants to watch you play if you're bored.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta like get into it. Come on, you're playing your music. Get excited. Like,
Yeah.
dig it up. and
Yeah.
usually, if you don't feel it, and you try to feel it, like, you'll get there. And teaching high school English, where I have basically captive prisoners, like, it's not like they can leave the venue if they don't like it. Like, they're stuck.
Yeah.
Like, it's a show every day. It's like I put on that hat, and it's like, here comes Mr. Funk.
Yeah.
And like, I'm animated, and I got to get psyched about everything we do. And it's clear in the reaction I get from my students. If I'm not feeling it, like, I can tell just by looking at them. So I've gotten a lot of practice, I guess, day in and day out. Some like 7:10 in the morning. I'm excited. You're 15 and want to sleep till noon, and you don't want to be here. So you got to turn it on, and I have the most fun when I do that too. When I succumb to the laziness, or when I'm uninspired about something, it drags. And it's the same thing when you're playing music. If you let that get the best of you, like, playing live can be hell. It can be so uncomfortable and torturous. But if you just decide, like, I'm gonna have the time of my life doing this, it makes a huge difference. That
Yeah.
your energy is so contagious, because in both of those situations, you're kind of like, you're supplying it, you're putting it out. You're on stage, you got loud music, like, you're in control of the mood of the room. And in the classroom, you're, in front of everybody. It's like being on a stage. So
Absolutely.
you have to turn that on, and especially when you don't want to.
Mm,
So I think I've gotten a lot of good practice being extroverted when I need to be. But yeah, my way of being is more to kind of lay back, I think.
that's
Gave you the
interesting.
longest answer to tell you, like, I think I'm introverted.
Dude, you're talking to the king of long answers here. I don't think I've answered one of your questions with like, yeah, I agree. So no, I appreciate that. I think I side
Well,
with
you
it
make
as
my
well.
job
Like,
easier.
it's weird. I'm so obsessed with asking people in our industry, whether it be performance or whether it be just YouTube in a nutshell, um, about like their uh, introvert, extrovert, nervous disposition, how they are as a person, because it seems like for the most part we're pretty introverted, which is wild because it's just like I'm gonna record myself and put it out in the world and see what happens and let people, you know,
Right.
have their opinion. That's what I learned from the RPAN stuff. It's like a million people twice a week, every week, and most of the comments were good, but there was like a lot of bad comments. For every comment that was like, dude, I get up in the morning and you make me not want to kill myself, there's like two comments that are like, you should kill yourself. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah.
So like, it's
Well, it's
interesting.
inevitable at those numbers.
Absolutely. And I
There's
think,
even if it's just someone fooling around with their friend, be like, "Hey, watch this,"
absolutely,
like
dude, but I would like,
you're just
take
gonna
it
the
away and then
odds.
I'd be at dinner like, yo, that's crazy. And I've spoken to so many people that, and sometimes I think it comes through. You've had the pleasure of speaking to Venus Theory. I love that podcast episode, and I think that's
Mm,
somebody that I think he seems quite introverted as well, and
mhm.
like
Well, he
it's
told me
so
he doesn't even like live music. He doesn't like going to shows and seeing live music, like, which is so funny as a musician, like, um, but I get it too. Yeah. But in a way, that I don't mean to interrupt you, but like,
no,
um, it is a way to sort of like be alone, but not be alone when you're,
exactly.
sitting in front of the camera or whatever.
It's funny.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Dude, the be don't apologize. It's just conversation. But the be alone and not be alone thing is interesting. It reminds me of the conversation I had just this week, with that same friend guy I used to session with. He lives around the corner, and we went for coffee. And both him and I, not dissimilar to Venus theory of like not enjoying watching live music, is we don't really hang around with people that are also musicians and talk about music a lot. So if anybody else is
Mm,
talking about music, we're like, whatever, right? I don't want to talk about that. I do it all day. I don't want to talk about that. Him and I seem to talk about music for the majority of our conversations, or at least squeeze it into a conversation every time we see each other. And I was like, what is that? What is that about you and I? We say we don't want to talk about music that much. We don't have any musical friends, but you and I will talk about the music until the cows come home. And I think there's got to be something similar to, again, like being a musician and maybe not wanting to go and see live music. Maybe it's something about like the magic of you and I have played on stage. So we kind of know, we can hear odd things if something's the intonations out of guitar or the bass drum pedals squeaking, or there's a little bit of feedback on a certain resonance or something like that. Whereas I think that goes over a lot of people's head and they're like, we're out. And it's not just about the gig, but it's like, we don't have the kids tonight. And we're like, I've got a drink in my hand and the lights are cool. And
mhm.
there's a bit of a buzz. Whereas I'm like, all right, so he's using Pro Mark 5Bs. That's a medium weight drumstick. Okay, like there's sometimes there's a little bit too much overthinking to be able to just enjoy it, like
Yeah, sure.
um, along with everybody else. It's very, yeah, very, very strange, very strange.
Mm. Yeah, sometimes I guess that does happen, and you find yourself thinking about little details that are like they don't really matter to the
Mm.
overall experience. Um, but I don't love crowds anyway. So that's one thing you're kind of putting up with, I guess,
Mm,
for live shows.
for
They
sure.
can be great when it's all nice and harmonious and stuff. But yeah, I do like being home and relaxed and all of that stuff.
Do you think that will ever be behind us, the live music thing?
Behind us, like we don't
In
do it anymore.
in terms of, I guess a good example is the Sphere in Vegas, right? It seems like
Okay.
definitely, but go with me on this. So it feels like it's more about the Sphere and going to see how crazy the Sphere is and all the visuals and everything that goes with it than seeing for right now U2,
Like
but in future,
you too,
whatever the
right?
crazy
Yeah.
band is. And I wonder
Hmm.
that coupled with AI, coupled with live streaming and things that people enjoy on a daily basis for a cheaper price point as well. Do you think that there will always be a longing for, like, let's be in the audience and let's watch some people perform on stage?
Well, I think something like the Sphere it's that's one of those things where like the venue is almost the attraction, and it's
Mm,
you know, wow, look at this. Sometimes venues have that, I think. Um, and sometimes when you see like a huge show like that, you're almost like not even at the show anyway. Like you're watching the screen. Your
mm,
seat is so far and it's so separated. Um, but to me, like that doesn't excite me all that much
mm.
anymore. To go to like a concert at like Madison Square Garden, and there's it's filled up, and I can see that the band is down there, but if I want to really see them, I got to look at the screen.
Sure.
Like I really much prefer, and in a lot of those cases too, you almost don't even know what you're hearing. Like, are they playing? Are there backing tracks? Like, what? I don't know what's going on. I can't see. I can't see his drumsticks and whether he's got the like 5Ds or what he's using. So I don't even know. And it looks like they're hitting the drums, and then I hear the sound because I'm so
Mm,
far away. But when you go and see in like a small, grimy place, and it's obvious that they're playing, and you're right there, and yeah, the sound might not be that great and whatever. That to me has that energy. It's like that punk rock, like
mm,
we're here together, and
mm,
that's really fun. Like I don't
mm.
think that'll ever get old because that's just thrilling when you get to see like a good musical act in a small place and there's people around, and it's all moving together. When you're sitting in the seat and you're kind of just watching TV, basically, eh, I don't
Mm,
know. I don't get as excited about those anymore. Um, I don't feel as connected to it.
mm. Yeah, I agree.
That I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think. And even when you just, like especially like when I see like younger kids these days, sometimes they just see somebody playing a guitar and they're just like, "Wow, like, that's so cool. Like, you're just
Mm,
playing a guitar. You're just playing a piano. You're just, and they're almost not used to that because everything is so polished and it's such a big production.
yeah.
It doesn't even, look, it's amazing what we can do now too, but I don't know that visceral, almost like early man banging around a fire, making rhythms. I just think that's too rooted in who we are. That
Sure,
like you
yeah.
can't deny that energy. Are
Mm.
you thinking? Maybe not. Goodbye, live music.
I don't think. No, I don't. I just think. I think there's a time and place. I agree with you. Like the smallest venues where I am the artist is here, and I'm my right foot is having to lean on the front of the stage, like those, or there is no stage. They're the best gigs, and they feel so intimate. There's a couple of gigs that come to mind where I was in the middle of nowhere, and there is also an artist that is touring, across country, whatever, and that's a perfect storm. I wasn't necessarily looking to go to a gig, or if I was, I didn't know who the artist was going to be, and you were kind of just touring across the country and trying to find venues that would put you up, and it's maybe a girl and her guitar or something like that, and they're like my favorite performances that I've been to. Sometimes the audience makes up the performance that I've been to as well. If like the audience really resonates and everybody's nice and dancing together, because there's some gigs where you go and people are fighting or people are drunk or what, and that like ruins the experience. So I agree with you there, but I think like everything, there has to be like an evolution, and it has to get not better, but there has to be some kind of improvement to the performance, so there is a wow factor, so people can be like, I haven't heard that before, I haven't seen that before. Like I think, dude, I got a band in my head, and I know I'm gonna watch this again, or somebody I know is gonna watch this, and they're gonna be like, dude, why did you say those? And I'm already kicking myself because it's not a band, not that anyone's
Limp
gonna believe
Bizkit?
me, it's not gonna never Limp Bizkit. I've always got time. It's not a band I listen to. It's not a band that I am particularly excited about, but I just think the gig experience, it seems like they have it down, and everybody that is into that band has a good time. Do Coldplay. Like Coldplay, I don't know about the rest of the world, but I read this year, last year, a couple of years ago, that the gigs in the UK, the stadium tour that they were doing, they were powering the stadium themselves. So they had like this floor that when you were jumping around and you were dancing, that was generating the energy and the power for the stadium, everybody dancing. And I know like years back when I was a teenager or when I was a kid, my parents' friends, they were into Coldplay, and then they went, and the wristbands that were your ticket, they all lit up, and everybody like was in sync with the music. So when they played, like, I don't know if it was the whole concert, but maybe their biggest tune or maybe a few of their biggest hits, when those songs played, the wristbands didn't just light up, but like there was a Mexican wave of colors, and there was like this kind of thing that was controlled by the music to the audience. And I think that makes it a special experience, and it kind of puts the audience as part of it, that especially like power in the stadium or power in the live equipment or whatever it was, like, we can't put on this show without you, and you should be here for a show, and we're going to make this like big and exciting. I think, and especially with the streaming stuff and how visuals work and VR, I feel like there has to be something that like continues to propel, like we've now gone into the new age of live music, and this is what it is. It doesn't detract from the singer. It's not like some cheap auto-tune trick or anything like that, but I do think it will evolve somewhere. I wish I had an answer for that and was like, and I'm the guy to do it. It's not me, but I do think, like
Yeah.
it will. I think it will go somewhere for sure.
Well, those are cool ideas. Like you said, I never heard about the powering the concert. That's really cool, and that makes you feel like I kind of want to go to that. I'm not a
Right.
huge Coldplay fan necessarily, but
There we go.
I want to
That's the
see
answer
that.
we
I want to,
wanted.
you know, um, yeah, like it matters that you're there. Like it's important. That's
Exactly.
that's what you want, right? When you go to a show. This is, I guess, the thing that bugs me. And look, maybe like, I like using computers to make music and all, but sometimes they're used to safeguard everything too much. And
Mm-hmm.
I really have a hard time. This is one of those things you were talking about earlier where the musician in you gets in the way. When I can't tell if I'm seeing you play the guitar or if I'm hearing the backing track or there's all this other music coming and I don't know who's doing what anymore. I just get this feeling of like, I don't even know if I'm just watching people like dancing on stage,
Mm.
pretending. I can't tell. And that just doesn't sit well with me. Um, for some weird reason. Other people
Yeah,
enjoy it just fine. They don't even think about it. But I I I like to know that there's like an element of danger kind of. Like
yeah,
stuff could go wrong or like they're going to do something different or it's going to have a little variety from the show they did last night in Cleveland. Like it's not
absolutely.
just like I want to feel like I'm at a special thing. That's why I go to a show. It's a one-time event.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't feel like it's that, I don't know. It doesn't feel important.
I get awfully introspective about YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok content for the almost the same reason. But like if I do some of my, oh, I haven't posted to Instagram for quite a while, but when I used to do regular posting, I used to try and do it on the spot, all one take. Like it has to be perfect, especially if it was like a beat making video or definitely on the kit. Like
Mhm.
it was a thing that I was familiar with that I prided myself on, so it had to be one take. And then I realized that there were so many people that did like mimed content or there was just something there. There's like, I wouldn't dare name any names, but there's like plenty of channels that they'll like, get something and hit that thing and that's a sample and then they move on to the next thing and then they make all of this music out of these samples, but like I've heard that sample. It's come from Splice. Or, I know that it doesn't sound that good because you're so close to the mic that it should sound bassy, but it sounds perfect. So it's probably not sampled. If
Mm.
it is, then you probably did it on a previous take and then you've mixed and mastered that thing. Dude, I get too introspective about it. And then I just start thinking like other people just enjoy the content. And like sometimes I think that's I wish there was like a I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer on this, but like I wish there was a button that could like Men in Black like flash me in the eyes and I forget everything and I could just enjoy it the same way that everybody else could enjoy it, and I don't have to be like, did they really
Yeah.
record that or is that mimed? I don't know. I do the same with like I don't know about over your side of the pond, but in the UK, David Attenborough is the guy. Like, and any documentary that David Attenborough voices,
Mm.
the whole country goes into lockdown once again, and we watch those documentaries all together and we enjoy it. And I
It's
realized
great. Yeah.
it's great. There's nothing not to love, but there's one specific thing not to love that I
I
think
know.
I
I think
drive
I know
my
where you're going.
I drive my friends so insane with
Uh,
this, and I don't know why I do it because I stop enjoying it myself. But it's when if they're filming like locusts eating something, that the locusts are
and
like,
you hear everything.
you hear all the foley, and I'm like, that if
Uh,
I'm just trying not to explode, and I have to say it, and I'm like, that's not the real volume. That's Foley and they overdubbed it, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go again." Just enjoy the thing, but it takes me so far out of the show to know that I'm like getting something that my friend told me. I
that's funny.
apologize to anybody that doesn't know this already, but this ruined films. A friend that works in film told me that in almost every scene, I thought it was just outside, but apparently in most
Mm.
scenes that aren't on a like an isolated set or whatever, they they overdub everything. And I thought it was just
Mm.
outside cars, like, the wind, whatever. But even if it's like moving about a house, moving about a room, pretty much everything is overdubbed. Dude, and now I just watch actors' mouths like a hawk. And if I sense that there's like a little bit of overdubbing going on, or when you get the character from behind and you can see that their cheeks aren't moving when
They're
they're
not
talking,
moving.
I'm out, dude. So I really get in my own way
Right,
when I'm
right.
too like analytical of this. I'm no fun to be around. This is why I'm an introvert.
That's why it's good you're YouTubing.
Exactly.
You're right. I've watched like the ants walking around and you hear all their little feet moving, and it's like, how did they record that?
Yeah.
Like,
Just the tiniest
and if
microphone.
they did, that microphone's so sensitive, it's picking up everything in a 4-mile radius.
Absolutely.
There's no way. I think too, in a lot of those, even the encounters with the animals, I think are suspect. I don't know enough about it, but it's like,
Mm.
okay, how did they get the camera there? And how are they filming that?
Well, the
I was watching
BBC got
one
under trouble. Like,
recently.
sorry to interrupt. The BBC got in trouble with it was many, many, many seasons ago, many years ago. I think I was a teenager or whatever, but um, they had been caught. I think it was Blue Planet, and they'd been caught like filming fish in an aquarium to get like some of the footage.
Mm.
And everybody was like, "How dare you?" And you're like, "Dude, come on, man! Like for a lot of the shows, the camera is already in the nest. When the eggs hatch or whatever. I think, yeah, I agree with you. I'm a little suspect of these shows for sure. Sorry to interrupt, buddy.
Yeah. No, no, it's funny. It's like the curse, I guess, when you start getting into like creating stuff, you start thinking about how it's made, and then sometimes a little bit of the magic is taken away. But
Mm,
the funny thing is that's actually kind of magic that when they first started doing that stuff, it was like state of the art. Oh, you know what? We can make this movie sound a lot better if we re-record the actors saying these lines
mm-hmm,
into a microphone in a studio rather than on stage. And to get it to sync up and look natural that's a pretty big feat. But yes, it is also the type. It's funny because I think it's the type of thing that kind of pulls you in on some levels because you hear the ants eating their leaves and it's really vivid. It pulls you in, but it can also be the same thing that makes you sort of see through the behind the curtain,
mm,
the Wizard
mm,
of Oz type of thing. It's it's the blessing and the curse, I guess we get, like,
absolutely.
as like a creative, especially I think I'm not a video editor. I just learned how to do what I do. That's probably I
Same,
probably
yeah.
don't need to say that for anyone watching any of my stuff, but
Yeah, they're watching
it's
our stuff and they're like, "We
they're
know."
like, "No kidding, buddy." But as you start playing around with that stuff, you start to realize like some of these little tricks you can do. We talk about cutting things together in scenes. Like if I want to make it look like I said that whole sentence in one shot, I can just zoom in on the camera. I
Hmm,
can
hmm.
pull that shot halfway through the sentence. If it cuts closer to my face, that's like a little trick so you don't
Yep,
realize that it's a new take.
yep, absolutely.
It's funny how that works. But and as a viewer though, sometimes that pulls you in because you're like, oh
Mm,
no, like it's just one of those things that interrupts your I don't know, it's not a static image the whole time. It's a little closer, it's a little further away. But I know now like that's me covering up a mistake or something. Or that's probably
I do
why a
now.
lot of other
Everybody else
people are
knows it
doing it
too.
too. There we go. Secret's out.
Is there a particular YouTuber that you watch or it doesn't have to be a YouTuber, but a particular um, show? YouTube could be one, like anything that inspires the work that you do.
Oh yeah, I think they all do. There's so many that like I watch and I'm just like, oh, it's so cool. They got like a little thing they say and it sounds natural. And it's like the
Mm,
catchphrase. There's this one guy I watch on YouTube. He's a video game YouTuber. And Patman QC, he's called. And he
right.
just like does documentaries on games, like arcade games, and then the releases that went home. It's such a nostalgic trip for me.
That's
But
cool.
he always starts it out with like, as the story goes, and then he tells you, and then he says like, and if you haven't had a chance to try this game, give it a shot. You'll be glad you did. And every time he says it, I'm
Oh,
like, yes. Like,
yeah.
say it along with him, you know? And yeah, they do certain things, and I've always been like, what could I say? I don't know what to
Yeah.
say. And
Yeah.
it's probably one of those things where you need to drive in the dark again, just start
Mm,
saying something or start doing something that is it's like a hook in a song when I'm watching
yeah.
these videos. It's like the chorus comes back.
Mm,
Um, Dr. Bob on YouTube, he's a music producer. I had him on the podcast, and he's great. He's got his like shtick where he dresses up like a surgeon, and he he does like this thing at the end of his videos where he just posts like after he's done telling you to join his mailing list and all that. He'll like put up like a still image in the last 4 or 5 seconds of the video. It's usually something current, and it keeps me staying just to see like what did he put up there? Is it like
really?
sometimes a callback to a joke he made? Yeah, and it's so simple, but it's really effective.
Mm,
And that yeah, that stuff inspires me. Like I really do like to see what people are doing to keep me interested.
mm,
And a lot of times it goes right like under my nose and I don't even think about it. But it's when I'm in that mode of creating something where I notice, I'm like, oh, that's they do that every time and I love it. You know,
yeah.
people have like their little thing they do, and you're like, oh yeah, Andrew Huang. He's like, hey, it's Andrew Huang. He gives you a high five, and you're
Yeah.
like, cool. You know,
Yeah. I wonder
it's
if
just yeah, I get a lot out of that. Do you have any?
I don't.
Anybody? Anything? Any?
I ca- I
That just makes you want to do it too.
I've definitely, you can see in some of my videos where I've tried to like emulate something again, like in the early days when I didn't really know what my voice was. I've always watched, I'm a
Mm.
terrible cook, but I love cooking shows and I really want to learn and I really try to learn to cook new things. I just get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed with all of the, when a chef is in a kitchen, it seems so much like creating music. They're just, I'm over here and I put this
Mm.
on and I know that's timed and this is going and I'm doing this and I'm boiling that and then I need to do this thing. And when I'm there, it's so stressful. Like this has to be boiling at this time, but I'm keeping an eye on this and I need to chop these things. So I have to lay out the kitchen with all of the all every ingredients that I'm gonna use in the order that I'm gonna use them. So it's just like the next thing, and I limit the amount of thinking. But I watch cooking shows all the time. So Maddie Matheson and Binging with Babish were like two huge inspirations that I took from for creating my channel. And there's a video that I have. I think it's called like cooking beats, or it's like I can't even remember what it was. It was something kitchen beat making or something like that. It's one episode on the channel early, like first 100 videos. And it's essentially me in the pandemic having binged all of Matty Matheson's content and then being like, I would love to do that for the, a beat making channel. And I'm like shouting at the camera and I'm like, just grab serum and throw it in. And it's a 4-4 and trying to make it like a cookie show. It was terrible. Um, I think I took that a lot, and then binging with Babish became more like, oh, there's a lot of good ideas here of like kind of what Inspired by became of like, let's see if we can. For those that haven't watched it, it's like he'll try and make the real he'll take a try for a dish from The Simpsons and then try and make it in real life. And I think like that was such a huge thing for Inspired By. It should never be one piece of content. It should never be one genre. I'm not a professional on anything, and it will never always be like the genre channel, whatever that genre is. And I wanted it to just be what the title suggests, is like inspired by it. This week I'm inspired by this, and the next week I might not be. And he had a very methodical, calm, but still excited and honest approach to what he was doing. He is quite open about not being, as much as everybody that watches his channel would disagree, but like not being a trained chef. He's just like a fan of cooking, and like kind of just going through things, learning it. In the show, he makes it wrong and shows you that he burnt it, and then makes it again. And I tried to do that in some of my episodes, especially the one there's like a bonobo one, and I show that I made the track 5 times, and each time I get closer and closer. And I think that's like really important. And then more recently, my buddy's going to watch it. He probably won't watch this. He doesn't have time to listen to me more. But he, if he did, he'd be shouting at me. But there's this dude that I'm fascinating with, and I hate that I'm forgetting the name, but he's a British dude that just like, I can't even sell you this channel and with all my excitement and make you want to watch it because it's so boring. But it's this dude who has a lot of subscribers, so at least enough people think it's exciting, who just makes coffee. British guy, glasses, gray or blonde hair, I forget. And it's all one take. There's no cuts. It doesn't jump in and jump out. It doesn't like, there's nothing. And he just sits on a blank table. Sometimes he has like a AeroPress or a coffee maker, and he just talks about like, this is my favorite coffee. The reason I like it is he used to own a coffee shop. He now brews like his own beans and still grows his own beans and stuff like that. And I don't even like coffee that much. There's a coffee that I like. I drink that. It's fine. But it's something about the calmness of the channel. There's something about his excitement. I'll listen to anybody that's like excited about something. So it's the passion that he has for coffee. But there's also an element of like, he does this all one take. They're like 20 minutes unedited videos, and like he just talks. So that's something that I've been trying to take into my channel just of the last like couple of weeks. I got a teleprompter because I really struggled talking to camera. Like we were saying earlier, my cutting room floor is like an hour and a half because I just have to keep doing it. And I say the same thing 20, 30 times and chopping it up. And I'd like to do just like, sometimes I feel like I'm doing those jump cuts that we spoke of because all the other YouTubers are doing the jump cuts. That hard crash in and that hard crash out and all of that kind of stuff. And I watch his channel and it's got however many subscribers, maybe 1 million. And I just think there's people there that are willing to listen just because he's passionate about this thing. And there's no hard editing. The room doesn't look fascinating. The camera's not like it's good quality, but it's not amazing because it doesn't need to be doing anything too crazy. I think that's probably the biggest influence I've taken as of late. But I think I think I'd take a lot of little pointers and lessons from gaming channels and from cooking channels, especially just the cooking thing. I think there's so many things that are like akin to what we do as music educators or musicians, where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to bring that into my channel and try and make it at least a little bit different from all the other beat making videos.
Yeah, that's cool. What was the coffee guy? What was his channel called?
I don't know. I'll find it though. Why do you think? Do you think you'd be into it?
Yeah, I'll put him in the show notes. I think I would be, because what I like about that too is that it's not, there's not a lot of editing. I don't like doing the editing. So it's just interesting to find out how somebody can keep that interesting,
His name
because
is
in our
James
world
Hoffman,
these
by the
days,
way.
James Hoffman. So probably write James Hoffman coffee. I'll put it in the show notes if I find
Do it.
But yeah, like in a world that relies so much on flash and glitz and this and that to keep our attention, I am pretty fascinated by someone that can just do it without any of that.
Mm,
And there's got to be something to learn from that.
for sure, for sure. I
That's cool
think
stuff.
that there's something about like, again, I don't know if this is again, so many things seem connected to music, or it's just because I am a musician. It's all I've ever known. So it's probably, and both things could be right. But I think like when I was very young, my music teacher told me like, you are an entertainer first and a musician second. And I remember being like, oh, that's
Mm.
crazy. The show isn't anything unless you can. You said it yourself earlier. Like if you're performing, whether it's playing guitar, playing piano, just singing, playing drums, whatever, you can do it in a half-hearted fashion or a way that people know like you're just getting a check or you're over this or you're tired or you don't want to be there. But but if you can entertain, even if that show's a little bit sloppy, um, it's a terrific show because people feed off of that. And I remember when
Mm.
I learned that, and then I went into teaching, and I remember being like really nervous, and then thinking back to that music teacher of being like, it's this, you're an entertainer first, and like you said, you've got these 15-year-old students that are captive for an hour or however long. I was a college lecturer, so sometimes they were 1, 2, or 3 hour lectures, and these are like 16 to 18-year-olds, so they already think they know the thing. And there was
Mm.
in that session I had to be like entertaining, because when you're in hour 2 or hour 3 of the lecture, it's like everybody, yourself included, is running on fumes. So um, I think likewise to what you said is like, I'm really astounded by a channel that is not only without animations and amazing lighting or perfect cameras and trickery and edits, and it's just someone talking to the camera. But I think I'm also amazed if someone isn't loud and in your face and moving around. Um, Casey Neistat comes to mind. Casey Neistat is one of the
Mm.
OG YouTubers, a terrific at what he does. And I think even if he didn't have any moving parts, like there was no cuts, there was no edits or anything like that, he would probably still have a successful channel because he's entertaining and he's got a lot to say and he's so good at talking to the camera. However, when you put someone like Casey Neistat next to James Hoffman, the coffee guy that we just spoke of, there's something that I get more excited about because he's so softly spoken and he's so quiet. But somehow that passion still comes through and you're still just as excited about whatever topic he's speaking on. And I'm like, oh, there's something there that's like really interesting that I wish I could harness, or that I would
Mm.
try to harness. Um, yeah, I forget if you asked the question there, buddy, but it's yeah, that stuff like fascinates me.
Mm. Yeah, and it shows, I guess, that it's not just high energy or flash or a certain type of personality. There's something else
Mm,
to pick up on. Yeah, it's mysterious, right? This
exactly, it's mysterious. That's the only way to
like
describe it.
you know, and I think again, like you just sort of have to try things out. And it's like that musically too. Um,
Hmm.
you gotta like just see if a technique works. You gotta see if doing this thing or that thing actually works for you. Does it get you a result, some sort of emotional impact or something?
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Weird, right? This it's so fun that all of this stuff is just there's no final boss, you know? There's no end to it. There's no you don't ever win. You have victories, I guess, but it every time you have to start again. Every time you have to figure out all these problems that always come up every single time.
Mm. It's so funny you say that. There's no final boss is like such a um it's such a perfect thing to say, not only in this conversation that we're having, and we've kind of mentioned video games and stuff like that, but also in life for everybody listening, and also where I'm at in life. And it also reminds me, it's like you just fourfold. Um, it reminds me of something that my mum told me. It's probably my youngest memory of my mum giving me advice, and she still says it weekly, monthly to me to this day. And it was I used to play. I think the first game I ever played was Sonic the Hedgehog on
Hmm.
the Sega Saturn. I don't know if it was the Mega Drive out by you, because I know it went under different names in Europe, but
It was the Genesis and the Mega Drive were the same system.
that was it.
Uh,
That was it.
we had Genesis. Yeah.
Okay, right. So I was on the Mega Drive, and um, yeah, I was playing Sonic, and I was obsessed, dude. And I would not want to go to bed because obviously back then no saves, right? No cartridge, nothing. PlayStation hadn't come out, so
Hmm.
it was
Oh
like
yeah,
this
and that game is hard.
hard, and it's like I'm doing that like stomp strop that kids do. I'm looking up in the air. This is the farthest I've ever got. You know, like I'm just going insane. And my mom was like, "You
Right.
try again tomorrow." And I remember, you know, like sort of screaming, throwing my dummy out the pram, figuratively and literally. You know, and you know, being, "Oh, I won't be able to get this far again." And my mom was like, "You will, right?" Anyway, next day, next week, whatever, playing the game, and I got a little bit further. And my mum being like, "See, I told you, get it. You just got to keep at it." Um, Never completed the game, so even in that sense, no final boss. But like, I remember years going by, and my mum, time and time again, to this day, if I get stuck on anything, and now it's almost like a self-soothe thing that I just hear her voice saying it, but like um, she always says it's just like Sonic the Hedgehog. Like anything is just like, you know, cool. The camera died, got to buy a new one. Boiler's got a problem, got to get it repaired. Um, you know, a relationship has gone down the pan. You're dating again. You're alone. You're moving. Like whatever it is, it's just like Sonic. You just gotta try again tomorrow and just keep trying,
Mm.
and you'll get further ahead. And that's like literally all it's about. And it's just what you said there about like there being no final bosses. It was just like it took me back to that memory. It sounds like you're quite at least from this for, you know, we've been chatting for 90 minutes or whatever. I feel like games played a large part of your life. Is that right or no? Has it just been we've mentioned it a lot?
No, I played more video games as a kid than I would probably care to admit. You know,
Yeah.
should have been outside more maybe. Yeah, I grew up like got like a Nintendo when I was young, uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, I loved those worlds. I was really into like comics and that kind of stuff, superheroes too. So it all I think played in together. Um, and yeah, I guess you know I got outside too. I was like playing and out out of the house as well, but yeah, there were definitely certain periods of my time. And I don't do it as much anymore. I don't even remember the
Mm,
last game I played, what it was, and it's been a long time. But I'm involved in the world still a lot. I have buddies that are really deep in video game land and uh,
sure.
do expos and all these things. So I'm
Yeah.
around it a lot, and I it's a nostalgia thing too. Like I watch a lot of it on YouTube. It's kind of funny that that's like the thing that if I'm not watching something music related, I'm probably putting on something video game related, and I exercise to it, you know, and it's just the thing that it just takes me back, I guess, you know.
Mm,
I love the sounds, especially, you know. Um, but I think that there were a lot of lessons that there's just kind of like a very strict and kind of impersonal cruelness to video games, right? Like if you like these things like apply to life so much, like you you die in Sonic the Hedgehog. The game's not mad at you. You just now you play again.
Sure.
Same thing. Just try again.
Hmm.
You get your 100 rings in Sonic the Hedgehog. You get your free life. You get 99, you get nothing. It's like you have
Yeah.
to get 100. Like you have to meet this requirement to move ahead. You gotta solve this puzzle. I don't know. I think it it probably shaped me in some ways. Um, I like the impersonal, like harshness of it. I try to think about that actually with like school, with teaching, where um, if there's a consequence or a penalty in school, like you gotta have rules and stuff. It's impersonal. It's like, yeah,
Mm.
you know, I'm not mad at you, but that's, this is what you gotta get to. This is what you gotta achieve. This is the expectation. Try tomorrow. Keep going.
Mm.
I'll help you. But you still have to get through it. And just like, Sonic the Hedgehog isn't angry with you after you died 27 times, it just lets you go again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, dude, that's what I miss about teaching. It was I haven't done it in, coming up 4 years now. And that whole, like, I remember I used to have students, every lesson they would show up 30 minutes late, you know. Some were worse, some were better. And then the day that they showed up earlier, 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, something like that, they'd go, "No, I'm here." And you'd be like, "Dude, you're still late."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, but I'm earlier than I was before." And it's that thing of like, dude, I'm not going to applaud you for doing the thing that you're almost supposed to do. Just do the thing you're supposed to do. Like, there's 50 other kids here that are like, just they were here on time, or they were here early, and no one
Mm.
is, the people that are on time are not better than the people that are early, and the people that are early don't, deserve more attention than anybody else. It's like the door opens and everybody comes in on time. And I miss having that rapport with students. I used
Mm.
to really get on with the not necessarily like really bad kids, but just the cheeky guys
Hmm.
that would like kind of bend the rules, or just kind of um play the system a little bit. But they were just, I always describe them as like, like just the education wasn't really like cut out for them, because it was so, at least in the UK, like so cookie cutter that you have to be this type of person. And they were
Hmm.
studying music, so there
Yeah,
really
definitely not
should
for
be
everybody.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, there's no cookie cutter, this is the way to learn. And those people that would kind of give you that eye, where they were like, I know you're just, if there was, we have Ofsted in the UK, right? When a particular time of the year when the managers roll through, and normally some external like verifiers come in, and they make sure that everybody's teaching as they should be. The problem with that is your managers will tell you how you should be teaching just for that one day. So everybody teaches in a wildly different way than what they would normally do. And it's normally
the
to the
the
detriment of the
show. Yeah.
students, because you're trying to put on this show. And there would be some students that would be like, "I know what you're doing, Will, and I'm gonna play along, but just." And I
Yeah.
enjoyed that rapport, and I think that's kind of like missing from my life online now. Is the Discord is there, and
Mm.
I'm in so many people's um group chats or DMs, or just the forum itself. And the same with the Patreon, and the same with the YouTube comments. I try and reply to everybody, but there's just like, you can't build the same rapport with people. So
Hmm.
dude, I'm a little bit envious that you're still like on the front lines. That's super cool, man.
Well, it's the same thing that would drive you crazy too.
Oh, for sure.
I know what you're saying, and it's fun. It's and and I can smile at it, but it is. It's also the thing where you're like, all right, come on, you know. Um, yeah, I know that feeling. I actually had one of those today where I got watched by one of the administrators, and I've gotten to the point with that stuff where I just really do believe I'm doing what I think is the best every day. I really am invested in my students doing well. I want
Mm,
that's what I want. That's and if I don't have to, I guess, necessarily. I can go through the routines, but it's if I don't do that, then it doesn't mean anything, then I'm wasting my time. So I do want it to matter. So
mm,
I don't get as like worried about it. I don't it's not like a show anymore. Like it definitely was when I first started. It was like, okay, I'm gonna pull out all the stops today. And now it's kind of like you're gonna get whatever I was gonna do.
mm.
So this is what I was gonna do. Here it is. Um,
Mm,
and it is funny though. There are certain people like they know what's going on, and they kind of have that like look in there, and they might even like play with you a little that day, you know, just for the fun of it.
test the boundaries.
But
Yeah.
you know, generally they do cooperate. They get it. They're like, okay, you know, it's funny how um, they sort of see you like more on their side in those moments, and but that's like a rapport thing that if you if you are honestly caring for them, and even if it means sometimes you got to come down hard on them, um, they know that. They know the difference between if I'm just trying to be like, I'm the boss, so you got to do what I have to say, compared to like, this is for you.
Mm,
There's a difference. And yeah, it's nice when you get that. And I actually do prefer those types of students. And on not, I won't say prefer, but like, I don't really want to teach the like, the really good honors and advanced placement classes. Um, it's like more of the game is happening more, you
yeah.
know. Well, we're here to get like good grades, and we're here to I don't know. Um, a lot of then like the numbers become important, and
Sure.
it's like the stupidest thing that we get grade, especially if you're teaching music. Like you're gonna give someone a grade. Like,
It's
what?
very strange.
I mean, I'm a lot of the writing that I teach. It's like out of 100, you got a 94. Like it feels like you're just making this up, and you kind of are. You know, you have your
Yep.
things that you measure against, but it's kind of nonsense. And
It
to
really
get
is. Yeah.
to then like have discussions about why it's what it is, it's like this isn't the point. It's not why
Mm,
we're doing this. It's I do that. I see that sometimes teaching with online Berkeley online. I teach, and there are people there that just want to like make good music and want to develop, and that's the best. And then there's others that you get the sense that they're trying to get their degree, and it's like
mm,
great, like have your degree. Like who cares, you know? What good is that doing you?
yeah.
Education is kind of weird like that because the education is sometimes the least important part. It's what do I get? Where's my paper? Where's my credential? And especially in music, it's so unimportant. I'm teaching the class. I don't have that degree myself. So
Yeah.
it's like the perfect irony. Like like I didn't get your degree and I'm teaching you.
Mm,
So, you know, think about that. It doesn't it can be helpful in certain situations. I guess it gets you in the door. And if you're going to be a doctor, like I would prefer you have that degree
sure.
that you went through that stuff before you cut me open.
Hmm.
But in like the arts, it's kind of like if that's what you're doing it for, it's like come on, like do something else that's a little more safe, and you'll get your money or whatever it is you're doing this for, because it's all about like the hustle and the drive and
Yeah.
the desire.
It was a weird thing in teaching in the UK was odd because the closer I got to like starting this new chapter, the more I would like kind of um like fight with kind of the management and the way the course was structured and things. And I think you hit the nail on the head there of like marking people out of 100. I love the world that I exist in now where I'm trying to use a good example. I can't really think of one, but like I will present something in Ableton or generalistically in music and go like, if you click this button and do this, then you get this. And someone else is like, I use this tool and it's like one less click. And then I get to reply in a comment and be like, dude, that's awesome. Either I didn't know that or like, cool, like good, like that's right as well. I didn't showcase it, but it's cool that it works for you. And I can also come back in the videos and change my answer, give a new take on things. I can shout people out and be like, this person introduced this to me. And I do quite like to be like proven wrong or like shown alternatives. And it's quite hard to do, especially when you were grading like college music, because the
Mm.
pass merit distinction criteria were kind of airy fairy. Like you, I remember one of the criteria for performance was like, it was kind of like stage presence or how you command yourself. And another distinction criteria was like mastery of the process. So, you would mark a student with a grade and I could mark someone with a distinction, but a manager that overlooks or a verifier that overlooks that grade can go, well, no, they got a pass. And that person doesn't do music. So your argument is, well, the reason they showed mastery of the process was X, even though that their playing style was this. Like if maybe one of my managers watched a student do a performance of like Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was really grungy and there was lots of shouting and the chords didn't sound that great. But in their written work of how they explained what their performance was going to be, it's like mastery of the process. But my managers would be like, it doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like this other person that you gave a pass or a merit. And then the opposite would be like if I gave someone a pass, maybe a parent coming in, or again, it could be someone above me saying like, no, this was distinction criteria, content or work or whatever. It's quite hard to sometimes mark work because you have to be very definitive once you've put that grade in, and then you have to stand by it. And I really like to be proven wrong
Defend
and go,
it.
you know
Right.
what, like I'd never thought of that, and that's cool. Let me change that.
Mm.
And you don't get to like often unless you're like kind of making sure no one sees that you've changed something. Like you don't in teaching you don't very often get to like kind of fight a good honest fight, at least from my experience, in terms of if somebody presented a well-rounded argument as to why they got a certain grade or whatever, that they can't really change your mind because you're stuck in the confines of like the paperwork. Whereas in the online space, you can constantly go, yeah, I retract my opinion about this. I was wrong about that. You've got a good idea. I'm going to make it be known that you were the person that I got this idea from. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's interesting. I've kind of uh, just in saying that, like you said, like it's the same thing that drives you crazy, and I hear that in now what I'm saying is like there's so much of it that I love, but there's so
You
much
don't
of
miss
it
it anymore.
that I disliked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's everything. Everything's like that, I guess.
Mm,
Yeah, I think if we all sat down and kind of like wiped our minds of if we weren't so entrenched in the systems that we grew up in that are still going on in education, nothing's really changed that much. If we could wipe that clean and we had to start it over, it would look so different. And so many of the things that are just we take for granted. Like, that's how you teach. Of course you have a grade. We'd probably be like, "Oh, grade? What are you talking about? Get rid of
Sure,
that.
yeah.
Like, that's nonsense." Like, you're gonna have an old person stand in front of these kids sitting in seats? That's stupid. Get rid of that. Like,
Hmm,
there's so
hmm.
many things that would just be we'd just be like, "No, no way.
Arbitrary,
What
yeah.
are we doing?" Uh, yeah, it's it's tough. There's the nice thing though is that you get a chance every day to be a role model. Whether you know it or not, you are. And like it's so funny because like there's things I say in class that just come out of my mouth spur of the moment that stick with people. And things that I think are really important that no one remembers. But then they'll ask me like, "Well, how's your dog Audra?" You know
Sure.
my dog's name. You got every question on the story wrong or this topic, and
Yeah.
but then you start to realize like, you know what? Like there was a human connection happening that's important for
Mm,
a young person who's trying to find their way in the world where they feel weird and awkward and maybe they're not connecting with peers and hey, like just to learn that there's people you can relate to and that you can seek out for help. I mean, even that is just like really important.
absolutely.
Um, but it's so intangible. Like you can't quantify that. There's no data that we can show for that stuff.
Mm.
So it it gets lost in all the stuff that we can produce data for.
Do
Bit of
you
a
have
shame. I don't know.
on the little bit of a tangent, but just because it just I'm just curious as to what I'd already left teaching when I went into YouTube and whatever, and you still active in the classroom or whatever. Do you have any students that have tuned into the channel, listened to the podcast, anything like that, where they've like passed comment on it? Do they think it's cool? Do they make fun of you? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, I used to try to keep these worlds separate. Like I didn't see the connection and I didn't see how letting people know that I taught would help my rock and roll career.
Sure.
And I didn't know how my rock and roll career, they got that rock and roll teacher, you know. Like they just seemed like they were at odds. So I
Yeah.
kept them really separate and
Right.
it inevitably though I got found out, you know, like
Sure.
they would just discover you, you know.
Mhm.
I don't know, they go home and they Google their teachers or something, but
You're right.
um once I brought it together and like showed like, yeah, this is I'm a person, this is what I do. And even with music, you know, started to embrace the things I was learning through teaching. It all made sense all of a sudden. So yeah, you get that sometimes, and I think sometimes they think they've like found you out, and it kind of depends on the approach. Sometimes I pretend like I saw you on YouTube. I was like, "Me tube?" I pretend like I don't know what it is or something. What's me tube? No, YouTube. Me tube? It's like Abbott and Costello thing starts
Yeah.
happening. Um, but then like others, you know, are more they're inquisitive sometimes, and it's I think it's nice to show them too that there's dimensions to people and that you don't have to be like the one thing that's your job. Um, and then sometimes you find kids that are into music and they connect with that too. And so it's a good thing after all, despite
Mm.
resisting it for like the first many years of my career. I think it's been a good thing just to show like what's possible. Um, You know, I like I did a book, that I put out last year, and it was I liked showing them like, "Hey, I like, if you just do something long enough, you keep showing up, like, you can make something." I just showed them
Yeah.
like, my record too, and I'm like, "This happened because no one gave me permission. I just kept showing up and kept doing it." And, like, that's how you do things. Like,
Mm.
whatever you want, like it's just keep going. And because so many people when they're 14 years old think like, I could never do this. I'm not that kind of person. It's like, dude, you're 14. Like
Some people think that
you
when they're
don't even know who you are
40.
yet. Yeah. Oh, well, 40, I guess I can understand a little more because you've been around longer, and then you realize I'm not artistic, which I still don't
Sure.
agree with. But to decide you're not athletic, artistic, or whatever it is at that age is silly.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
But we all do it. I did it too when I was the same way. But I like being able to show them that's not true. Like
Mm.
if you did it for the next 4 years, you'd be doing it for 4 years, which is a long time to be doing anything.
Yeah,
But it's also
absolutely.
like no time at all.
Yeah,
It's
on the
also
grand
nothing.
scheme. Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So in no time at all, you could be, pretty experienced, whatever you want to take up.
Mm.
Those are the things I like. I don't get as jazzed about teaching grammar. you know, that's where I have to pretend.
It's more about
Probably the
the
same thing with
human
music.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's things that, just showing people new things. That's like when you teach music too, same thing. It's exciting when you see them, oh my God, I didn't know I could do that. And then, like now they're making a new beat and you're like, yeah,
Sure.
isn't that fun? Like
Yeah.
you remember how exciting it was when you discovered it. And then a lot of times in my classes with music, the question gets asked and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. And then we start playing with it and I'm like, oh, I got to do that again myself. I don't make enough use of this technique, or
Sure. Yeah.
it's cool stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So listen, man, I've kept you a long time. Thank
I
you for
appreciate it.
being so generous with your time and
No worries.
going on this kind of wide ranging, rambling conversation. But it was a lot of fun.
This is so much fun. It's a weird thing to do
There's
as the last part of my day because it's like
yeah,
midnight now. So I'm just gonna. We've talked,
oh
set the
wow,
world to rights, and we've talked about all of these high concept ideas, and then I'll just be in bed and be like, "That was a good podcast," and then just go to sleep. It's a very strange nighttime routine that you've set here, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. Thanks so much, buddy.
okay, cool, yeah, I had a great time. So we can send people to willhattonmusic.com. I think that's kind of like a hub where they can find your music, they can find your YouTube. Um, and the YouTube is it just at Will Hatton? There's 2 T's in there. So
It is indeed. Yeah, that's
um,
correct.
we'll put all that in the show notes. And your Patreons, it's Patreon/ the Will Hatton or the Will Hatton.
Yeah,
And
I really messed up with all of the URLs in the early days. It should have been Will Hatton or Hushchild or the Will Hatton, but I didn't get any of them the same. So I feel like, yeah, willhattonmusic.com is
yeah.
probably the best place to find everything else. Otherwise, you'll be there all day. You'll be like a professional coder trying to get in the back doors of all the places that I am.
Well, I found it actually. I was Googling some of this stuff earlier just to get them all ready, and they come up.
Nice.
So, but
You
they'll be in
did
the
it.
show notes, so people
Thank
can
you
go
so
right to the
much,
show
man.
notes. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to you, the listener. Have yourselves a great day and see you next time.
Wait. What was
You'll
the
be
thing that
glad you
you're.
did.
We were the same. You'll be glad you did.
There you go. Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you want to help support the show, the best thing you can do is tell a friend, someone you think that would enjoy the show. I'd also love it if you could leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support my work, you can go to brianfunk.com. I've got tons of Ableton Live packs, tutorials, samples. You can check out my book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, which gives you 365 short music making activities to help you get started, stay inspired, and finish more music. And there's also the Music Production Club, where you get my latest releases as soon as they're finished. It gives you access to a community of like-minded people who are making music and sharing ideas. You can share your music, find new collaborators, and participate in our live meetings where we set up some kind of musical challenge and then make music together and share our results at the end. That's the Music Production Club. It's a lot of fun, and you can find that and everything that I do at brianfunk.com. Thanks again for listening to the show, and have a great day.